Room 4B at the Callaway Hotel had a Do Not Disturb sign on the door for 6 days before anyone thought to question it. Housekeeping assumed the guests simply liked their privacy. The front desk assumed the bill was being handled automatically, since the room had been paid for, in full, in advance, in cash. Nobody assumed anything was wrong, because nothing about Room 4B looked wrong. Until the smell. On the 7th morning, a housekeeper named Doris Felton used her master key, expecting nothing more than an awkward conversation about checkout time. What she found instead was a room that made no sense. The bed hadn't been slept in. The bathroom hadn't been used. The suitcase in the corner was unpacked, untouched, zipped shut, exactly as it would have been when it was first carried inside. And on the small writing desk by the window, facing the door, was a single chair, pulled out as if someone had been sitting in it recently, waiting for someone to walk in. The guest, a man who checked in under the name Harold Penn, was gone. He had never checked out. His car was still in the parking garage. His luggage was still in the room. The hotel had no record of him leaving the building at any point during his stay. And yet, somehow, Harold Penn was nowhere to be found. 17 years later, he still isn't. This is the case the press called the Silent Room, and it remains one of the strangest, most quietly unsettling disappearances ever investigated by the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. Stick around, because the deeper you go into this one, the less it looks like a missing person case, and the more it starts to look like something else entirely. Let's start with what little anyone actually knew about Harold Penn, which, as it turns out, was almost nothing. He checked into the Callaway Hotel on a Tuesday evening in March, paying for a full week up front in cash. He gave a home address in a city 3 states away. When investigators later tried to verify it, the address turned out to belong to a vacant lot. The phone number on his registration card was disconnected. The signature on his card didn't match any known sample of handwriting from anyone by that name in any public record investigators could locate. In other words, as far as anyone could tell, Harold Penn did not exist before the moment he walked through the Callaway's front doors. And he stopped existing, as far as anyone can tell, the moment he walked out of Room 4B. The front desk clerk who checked him in, a young man named Trevor Edicina, described him as polite, unremarkable, mid-40s, traveling alone, carrying only the single suitcase and a leather satchel he kept close to his body the entire time, like it mattered more to him than anything else he had, Trevor told police. That satchel was never found. Here's where the case stops being a simple disappearance and starts becoming something investigators still argue about today. Room 4B showed no signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle, and, according to the original crime scene report, no fingerprints anywhere in the room except Harold Penn's own, and those of hotel staff who'd cleaned it before his arrival. That alone isn't unusual. People wipe down hotel rooms. People are careful, but what was unusual was this. The Do Not Disturb sign had been hung on the door from the inside, meaning someone had to either reach through the gap beneath the door or had been in the room at the exact moment the sign was placed, before locking the door behind them on their way out. The deadbolt was engaged. The window, 11 stories up, was locked from the inside. There is no record, no footage, no witness account of Harold Penn or anyone else leaving Room 4B at any point after he entered it on Tuesday evening. And yet, 6 days later, the room was empty. Investigators have spent nearly 2 decades trying to explain how someone could vanish from a sealed room without anyone noticing them leave. To this day, nobody has offered an explanation that fully accounts for every detail. The Callaway Hotel had security cameras covering the main lobby, the parking garage, and both elevator banks, but critically, not the hallway outside room 4B itself. A gap in coverage the hotel corrected only after this case made headlines. Detectives reviewed every frame of footage from the 6 days Harold Penn was registered as a guest. He appears on camera exactly twice. Once, walking from the front desk to the elevator on the night he checked in, satchel held tightly against his chest. And once, this is the detail that has fueled true crime forums for years, at 3:14 a.m. on the third night of his stay, captured for less than 4 seconds by the elevator camera on the 4th floor, walking *away* from room 4B in the same clothes he checked in wearing, moving at a normal, unhurried pace. He never reappears on any camera after that. Not in the lobby, not in the garage, not on any floor. Either Harold Penn found a way out of that building that no camera, no exit door alarm, and no staff member ever recorded. Or he never left at all, and something happened to him sometime after 3:14 a.m. inside a hotel that 6 days later would produce a sealed, untouched, empty room with absolutely nothing to explain where he'd gone. Every case like this eventually turns its attention to the people closest to the scene, and the Callaway Hotel had no shortage of staff with stories that didn't quite line up. Trevor Edesina, the desk clerk, was the last confirmed person to speak with Harold Penn. His account never changed across multiple interviews, which investigators noted as either a sign of honesty or rehearsal. He left the hotel industry entirely within a year of the disappearance and, by his own admission years later in a podcast interview, still has dreams about that front desk. Doris Felton, the housekeeper who discovered the empty room, mentioned something in her statement that investigators never fully chased down. She said the "Do Not Disturb" sign, on the morning she finally opened the door, was hanging slightly differently than how she remembered seeing it hung on previous days when she'd glanced past the room, turned, she said, like someone had touched it more recently than they should have been able to. If true, that detail suggests someone entered or exited room 4B after the timestamp on the elevator footage, which would mean the official timeline of the case is wrong. And Harold Penn may have been alive in that room for days longer than anyone believed. Doris was never asked to elaborate on the record. The detail appears once in the file and is never mentioned again. The hotel's night security guard, a man named Walter Briggs, was on duty during the only window of time Penn could have left the building unseen, the dead hours between 2 and 5 a.m. Briggs told police he hadn't left his post once that night, but his own logbook recovered later showed a 40-minute gap with no entries, the only gap of its kind in 3 months of otherwise meticulous record-keeping. Briggs said he must have simply forgotten to log a routine walkthrough. Investigators were never able to prove otherwise. They were also never able to disprove it. If there's one detail that has obsessed amateur investigators more than any other, it's the leather satchel Harold Penn was never seen without, and that was never recovered. Here's why it matters. 3 months after the disappearance, a financial investigator working the case discovered something unusual. In the weeks before checking into the Callaway, Harold Penn, or whoever was operating under that name, had made several large cash withdrawals from accounts that, when traced, led to a tangle of shell entities registered in 3 different states, none of which led to a real, identifiable person. In other words, Harold Penn wasn't just a man with a fake address. He may have been someone actively hiding significant money under a constructed identity, days before he checked into a hotel room and vanished from it without a trace. This has led to the case's most enduring theory, that Penn wasn't fleeing a person, but a debt, an organization, or a danger large enough to require erasing his own identity, and that whatever happened in room 4B wasn't a disappearance at all, but a retrieval. Someone, the theory goes, came looking for that satchel and found a way into a locked room that nobody else could explain. It's a compelling theory. It's also, like everything else in this case, entirely unproven. The Callaway Hotel is still operating today, though it's changed ownership twice and room 4B was renumbered years ago. A decision the hotel has never officially explained. The longtime staff will tell you, off the record, exactly why. Harold Penn has never been identified. No missing persons report from anywhere in the country has ever matched his fingerprints, his appearance, or any detail recovered from that room. Whoever he was before March of that year, he built himself well enough to disappear twice, once into a false identity and once, seemingly, into nothing at all. The case remains open. Caldwell County still reviews it periodically, particularly whenever cold case fingerprint databases are updated nationwide. So far, nothing has matched. Trevor Adesina, now in his 40s, said in that same podcast interview that the thing that haunts him most isn't the footage, or the sealed door, or even the satchel. It's the chair, pulled out from the desk, facing the door, as if Harold Penn or someone else entirely had been sitting there, waiting for something or someone that no camera ever caught arriving. Somewhere, there's an answer to how a man can walk into a hotel room, vanish from every camera in the building, and leave behind a locked door that no one can explain opening from the outside. Until that answer surfaces, room 4B, wherever its number is now, remains exactly what it's been for 17 years. A door that was locked from the inside, and nothing on the other side of it but questions. What do you think really happened in that room? Was Harold Penn running from something or running to it? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if cases like this one keep you up at night, the way they keep me up writing about them, subscribe. There's another one waiting for you next week.